Hello everyone, my name is Armando Perez-Carreno, and today we're talking about what your dad should know about ChatGPT. This is going to be a fun subject because I hear this all the time from not only my parents and other friends' parents and family's parents that you see this AI evolution going on so fast, and some people start feeling left behind. They're not sure if they're up to date, if they should be up to date even at all. And that's what I want to discuss today in case you or someone you know might be in that same situation where they know they should try it, but they maybe have not. Maybe they're too scared to try it. Maybe they're not even interested in trying it. But at the same time, they might be losing out on some very nice benefits that using these tools can provide to practically anyone. So let's get into it. What is ChatGPT? Let's start with that. So ChatGPT is a way for you, in a simple manner, to talk to an AI. It's a chat interface. It's also a voice interface. You can talk to it via voice as well if you have the app, and it will respond. So like talking with someone else, let's say you're sending a chat message via Messenger or WhatsApp or SMS to someone you know, and they reply back, same sort of deal. You're just talking with someone, but that someone doesn't really exist. However, that someone, the LLM, which is not a thing, it's not really thinking, it's not a being of any sort. It is just a series of very powerful computers that have a breadth of knowledge, just an amazing amount of knowledge about everything that's happened in the world up to this point. And so it can reply with certain accuracy very quickly to what you ask it. So you might ask it a comparison like, what is this temperature in Celsius? You give it a Fahrenheit temperature and it'll give it to you, or in Kelvin for that matter. And that would be immediate. Why? Because it knows the conversion rate for it. If you want to ask it about translating something, like here's something in English, tell it to me in Spanish or in Chinese, Mandarin, whatever other language you want, it'll probably do a good job of it as well because it understands that translation. If you ask it about history, it will probably give you a very accurate answer. Unless it's a muddy area where there are different opinions. But in those cases, even some of the advanced models will tell you the discrepancies and what each side might be representing. So it's a very interesting tool because you now have in your pocket or in your computer, wherever you're using it, a way to talk with a thing that has large amounts of knowledge, and it can give you a response very quickly. So talking about parents, some of our parents are going to ask us some questions, maybe about some technological thing, maybe how to update their phone, maybe how to store their pictures onto something else, maybe how to upload a file and send it somewhere else. And this is, for a certain generation, that's the type of questions that you're going to get. Others are going to be asking maybe more difficult questions about other technology aspects, about, I don't know, setting up the network, the router, the security in a firewall in the home. Or even if your parents are working, then perhaps they have some questions about how to use certain technology in the business itself. And so where they would traditionally maybe ask you, they can now ask these tools and get an immediate answer if you're busy. And of course, by all means, give them the answer. If you are available and have a chance to give them the answer, that's perfect. And it gives you an opportunity to talk with your parents as well, such as happened this morning with my mother when she called me about something specific she wanted to do, specifically translating a document. And so it is great that you can do it, but then sometimes you are busy. And then sometimes they just want a quick answer. And then sometimes they don't want to bother you. And this applies to everyone. I'm just not necessarily just speaking to parents and children. It could be to anyone, anywhere. So if there is something that you can ask any sort of questions you want to, and it will give you a very good answer, then why not use it? So let's start with that example about translation. Perhaps you have a document like a CV or something like that, and you need to send it somewhere, and you need to translate it fast. Well, you could take your time and translate it yourself if you're good at both languages, which is good. But perhaps you want to do it quickly. Perhaps you have more important things to do. You just have to send that over as a formality or something. Well, you can grab that document in Word format or PDF and add it to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and tell it, can you please translate this document, keep everything style related the same, don't change labels or names of things. Talking about a CV, for example, maybe you don't want to change the names of the conferences you attended or anything like that, but you do want to change the bullet points or what things are called, labels for each specific item. So in that scenario, just tell it that, and that's what I did this morning. And the thing just started going through it, and it started analyzing the document, and it started seeing. And this is where it gets interesting. It doesn't just translate everything word for word. It goes through and understands the context of the document and says, oh, this looks like a label. I should translate it. This looks like the name of a book or conference or event or job posting. I will not translate that. I will keep it as is so that the document is like what a regular real person would have translated. Then, and this is what we did on a call now with my mother, we went actually through it to check that everything was fine. And most of it, 99% of the document, was excellent. There were a few things here and there, like maybe a word could be swapped for a better word. Perhaps you're talking about a facilitator versus a practitioner. In a certain industry, one word or the other might make more sense. And that was really the type of thing that we had to adjust. So it saved us a lot of time. It gave us the output that we wanted. And there was no technical aspect about it. We just gave it the thing, gave it some instructions, and it gave us a really good result back, which is what we wanted. So that's one example of something I can do. And if you have any ideas of something that you think, hey, could it maybe an LLM help me for something like this? Please put it in the comments, and I'll be happy to give you a response of whether I think it would be done or could be done or not. I'm going to give you some other examples. And it's funny, some people just think of ChatGPT as a tool for little gimmicks. So the other day I was talking with a friend, and we were here at the house. They were visiting from out of town, and he told me that the amount that he uses ChatGPT for is no more than a helpful assistant in the kitchen, for example. Oh, give me a recipe for corn on the whatever, right? And that's what he uses it for. And that's great. It's great for recipes. I particularly gave those examples at the very beginning when these LMs were starting to appear as tools that we could use in our day-to-day lives. The recipes were a great example because when you search for a recipe, and if you've done this, you'll know what I mean, the results that come up in a search are typically blasted with advertising. So it's like 2 lines of text, an image, 3 advertisements, a little bit more of the recipe, more advertisements, some images that are completely unrelated, more advertisements, more directions, more advertisements. And it's just not something that you enjoy. It's very hard to read the actual recipe and get what you wanted. With LLMs, it became much easier because then I could just ask it, give me a recipe for pecan pie, and it'll give me a detailed recipe with instructions. And then I can even ask it further instructions or say things like, and I've done this before, I do not have this particular ingredient. Is there an alternative? Is there a substitute? And it will go in and say, yes, if you do not have this particular rising flour, or if you don't have this particular ingredient, then if you mix these 2 other ingredients that you might have, like lemon and some other thing, you get the equivalent of what you needed with that first ingredient that you were looking for. So that allows you to continue with what you were doing without having to do a run to the supermarket to get that ingredient that you were missing, which probably would have been what you had done before. Now, granted, if you've been cooking for a long time, then you would know these tricks. Or maybe your mother or your grandmother knew these tricks and they didn't have to go and buy everything because they knew what the alternatives were because they had more experience. But many of us don't have that experience. So again, having these tools that allow us to be able to get these answers so quickly is really super valuable. So that's another thing that you can use for simple, basic, if you will, but at the end of the day, something really useful in our day-to-day lives. Another thing that I found really useful and a great time saver, and this is for your dads, for your moms, for your grandparents, whoever is trying to keep track of their expenses, right? Let's say you are doing your taxes at the end of the year, or at the end of the quarter, or whenever you're doing them. And you need to keep track of all your expenses because maybe you have some deductions, or maybe you just want to keep track of your expenses to see where your money is going. So traditionally, either you have a tool like QuickBooks or Mint or whatever, and you just have been doing it forever, and it sort of keeps tracks for it for you, and it connects to your bank account, and it grabs all the data, and it does it for you. And that's really nice, but let's be honest, most people don't have this. And so what most people end up doing is whenever the time comes, they will grab their bank statement. So they will first go to their bank account, they will download said bank statement, then they will open them. Some of them will print them out. And then they will go line by line and they will start writing down what they spent and where. And then they will start to categorize them one by one again. And some things are repeated, but you have to do it one by one. And you might do a spreadsheet for being fancy, and you're going to go through it, and then eventually you have your totals, etc. And then you have to consolidate everything to make sure everything maps out. Okay, so imagine how much time you spend doing that. Now, another way using an LLM is you download all your documents and then you just give them to the LLM. So you can use Claude for this. You could use ChatGPT. You can say, it's January. Here's a PDF. Please extract all the expenses and categorize them for me. Here are the categories. Or just give me all the categories. And it will create a spreadsheet for you, and it can give you everything already categorized. And then you can say, perfect. Now we have these categories. Let's try to recycle them across all the different months. So here's February. And then it'll do February. And then here's March, April, May, June, July. And then it'll go and do the whole thing for you. And then you can have it run analysis on that data. And you don't have to code anything. You just watch it work. And it will give you everything already structured the way you need it. And it can extract all those categories. It could tell you what can be used for a deduction, what can't be used if you tell it what you're doing and what your work is. And you can even give it the tax code and have it give you that information. And then when you give it off to your accountant, they will be very happy because everything will be nice and in order. And then it'll be less work for them to do as well, instead of you just sending them over a pile of receipts. That's another thing you can use it for. And I've used it before for things like that. It's really useful. And it's comparable to having these other tools where you might have needed to connect everything to the bank account, which is, again, very good. But if you haven't done it before, then starting it is a whole endeavor. So just using these tools to do this for you is very useful and very helpful. It can save you a ton of time. Another very important thing that I've seen is manuals. So I don't know if this has happened to you, but maybe someone has come to you and said, I don't understand why the TV is not working, or it's doing this thing, or it's showing this screen, and I need your help. And again, while you might have the time to go and help them, which is fantastic, you might not. You might be busy. You might be in a meeting. Maybe they need to watch the TV right now. So these tools allow you also to ask it things like that. So you can say, hey, I have this sort of TV, this type, and it's showing this message. What can I do? Or the internet's not working. What can I do? And it will guide you through those steps without having to be on hold for an hour with someone from tech support trying to figure out what's wrong. And if it does not know about that specific type of device, you can actually download the manual and give it the manual. And not even that, sometimes you can tell it to go find the manual, download the manual, and then read the manual. And so if it reads the 200-page manual for you, then you can ask it, I have this issue. It's showing this screen. It's showing this message. It's showing this error. What can I do? And then it'll go through it and it will give you a response based on the data in that document. So it saves you, again, a ton of time, and it gives you very good responses because now it's grounded in a certain truth based on that document that you gave it. So again, super useful. I really like that one in particular because many times we don't have the manual, or it's written in a very convoluted way and it's hard to understand what it's saying, especially for someone who's not from that particular industry of which this device belongs to. So it will save time, give you the result faster, and perhaps you'll have a better chance to actually talk about nice things in life instead of just limiting your conversations to how you can fix their TV. That's another great example of what these little tools can do for you and help you with. Now, there's another part of it, which is sort of the business aspect of it. And we talk about the business aspect a lot because we help business owners implement AI and automations into their businesses, workflow automation, that sort of stuff, and connect all different sorts of systems. So I talk about that all the time. So today I'm talking more about the general use for those who are not necessarily in business. And I'll give you some business examples as well at the end, but just for reference, that is what we're talking about. And another thing that is very common outside the typical technological space is just household chores. So there are some things that you are supposed to do that you might not be doing, but you're supposed to, like changing the air filter in your home, or draining your water heater, or checking the oil in your car to make sure you have the right amount of oil and it's not burning too much, especially if you have an older car. So yes, of course, you can take it to the shop, but that means going to the shop and maybe you don't have the time to do it. And you just want to make sure everything's in order before you actually pay someone to do something to it. This applies to the car, the air conditioning, the plumbing, etc. So there are many little things that you as a homeowner or just someone who lives somewhere in a house or condo or apartment or whatever that help you maintain the value of the home by just doing proper maintenance and avoiding big penalties in expenses for electricians and plumbers and things like that in case of emergencies. So these sorts of things, also, you might not have done them in the past because you really don't know how to do them. Simple things like unclogging the drain and fixing the toilet and replacing the little froggy thing in the toilet. All those sorts of things anyone can do, and sometimes we just don't do it because we never learned how to do it. But again, with the LLMs, you can ask them. You can say, well, this thing is happening, it's not flushing, or it's flushing, it doesn't close. Well, it'll tell you, okay, you need to buy this thing, go to Lowe's, go to Home Depot, buy this thing, get back, then you have to find this thing and drain the water and turn the water, and this is how you turn off the water. And you might ask it, well, my faucet looks different, or my whatever, it just looks different. Here's a picture. You can send it a picture and it could say, oh, yes, because you're using an older version, or you're using this other thing. And so it'll help you understand the differences between what the manual says and what you're actually seeing. And from there, it might tell you some more important things that sometimes we forget, like make sure you close the main or turn off the main so that you don't have an episode in your house. And that is just one of the thankful things that you could do. But again, it can help you really do activities that are important that you might not be doing just because you're scared of not knowing how to do them. So it's just a companion that can help you figure out those things that you need to do. Finally, because I said I would mention it, if you are in business or you're doing anything work-related, it can also help you a lot. Just simple things like drafting proposals. This is one where I know there's a lot of work involved, and maybe you just talk to someone and you need to send them a proposal, but you need to get to work and you don't want to waste time on that because you have to do the work, but at the same time, you have to send them a proposal. So a quick way to draft proposals is if you already have one for which you spent hours before, and you already know sort of how much you would bill them, but you need to do the whole formality of building that draft proposal, then what you could do is now everyone records their Zoom calls or their meetings, right? So if you just had the meeting, they explained everything, you have the scope in that meeting, instead of having to draft everything, just grab the transcription from that video, give it to the LLM and say, okay, so this is what transpired. These are the key points. Help me figure out if we're missing anything. And then it'll give you a summary of everything that you talked about with your client. And then you can give it a proposal that you had from before, and you can say, okay, so this is what we've done before, and then this is, for context, what I think is going to be, or this is a calculation, this is how we calculate it. Based on that, generate the proposal. And it can go ahead and do everything for you and draft a final proposal that has everything, pricing and everything related to this new client in the same style that you did before. Then you go over it. Of course, you check that everything makes sense and everything is checked off. But imagine how much time you'll save if you're doing that. All right, so that's everything I wanted to talk about. If you're liking this content, make sure to like and subscribe right here on YouTube or wherever you're watching the video. And make sure to also listen to the web talk show on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Again, my name is Armando Perez-Carreno. And if you have any questions, please shoot them over via DM on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you can find us. There's a messaging option, except YouTube, of course, but you can always leave a comment here as well. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you in the next one.